What's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale with your favorite guest of all time. Back on the channel, it is Mr. Woody. Woody, I've been getting like a billion requests for you guys, like for you in the comments to come back. So happy to have you back on the channel, man.
Oh, Ash, it's a pleasure to be back. You're my favorite host, so the feeling is mutual.
Oh, shucks. Thanks, man. First off, we're going to ask you the hard-hitting question right off the bat here. And you are known as a beer connoisseur. And I have to ask, do you have any beer recommendations for us like me? I have a few favorites, but, you know, I don't think I'm nearly well as versed as you are in the whole craft beer market.
Well, that is true. I do enjoy a good brew on a Tuesday night for the News, Brews, and Q's stream. Yes. I think my favorite right now is a local specialty out here in the Washington, D.C. area from a brewery called Port City. The name of the beer is Optimal Wit. It's nice, crisp, refreshing, doesn't hit you too hard. So if you're streaming, trying to play Clash Royale at the same time, it'll go down easy.
Yes.
But it's perfectly balanced. Yeah, it's great. It could actually, it could even stand for a nerf. It's really, really good.
Ooh, I like that. Speaking of nerfs, my favorite is called Golden Drac. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't, actually.
Check it out. It's a dark Belgian beer. High alcohol content. If you like dark beers, though, it's so tasty. I love it. But this isn't just the beer episode. I know probably most of my viewers are under 21 anyway. I apologize, they're 18 overseas, but had to ask. Woody's the expert on everything, basically. So today, I want to talk about, obviously, we kind of missed your card popularity snapshot, which is always one of the best pieces of literature out there on Clash Royale in terms of getting a gauge for what's working and what's not in the current meta. But you were traveling, I was traveling. We kind of missed that episode, but, you know, it's probably, what, like a week and a half, 2 weeks old right now?
Yeah, just 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we can still talk about what's popular in the meta, but I really wanted to kind of hone in on free-to-play decks, or people who basically, when I say free-to-play, I don't necessarily mean someone who's never spent, you know, 30 bucks on the game. I mean people who aren't big spenders. So I just kind of want to get into some tips, tactics, upgrade strategy, type of decks that are actually working in the meta that applies to the non-big spenders. So we will get into that as well, but first, let's just start out with the meta in general. Now, this is a very, very widespread meta, very big. There's a lot of archetypes. There's a lot of different types of decks that are very viable right now in the meta. How do you like that? I've noticed that some pros love having a ton of popular decks, but most probably hate it. I think most casual players actually like it. What say you, Woody?
I think it's fantastic. Deck diversity really brings out the creativity in the game and being able to develop lots of different viable win conditions. You know, back when Goyzen, the giant poison deck, was meta, and that was pretty much the only thing anyone played, there were some people who liked it because they felt like they had a very reliable deck that they could always win with if they had the skill advantage. And there are some concerns about, you know, being counter-decked really hard and you don't have any chance to win if you have the wrong matchup. But I think that that's just a short-term problem. I think that players will continue to develop these decks to become more well-rounded and face these challenges that they're going up against. I love the fact that there's multiple win conditions that are doing well.
You know, I'm 100% with you on that one, Woody, and it might not be a popular opinion. Maybe it will, I don't know, but like, I like it too. I agree with you. I think you hit the nail on the head there, saying that it's a temporary problem. I think that, you know, I mean, here's a question. Do you think that right now there's probably like 4 or 5 arguably archetypes, like big archetypes? Do you think there'll ever be more based on, you know, new cards with new types of win conditions, or will it all fall into one of those categories?
I think that we will continue to see them expand over time. You know, back way at the beginning of Clash Royale, when I think the Rumham was the guy who wrote the article about Control, yes, Beatdown, and Siege. Those were kind of the only ones that we ever talked about, but we've kind of seen now that Log Bait and Zap Bait kind of swarm decks fit into a different role kind of entirely from that system. So as more cards come out, I hope that we get different, new, completely different ways of looking at the game.
Yeah, me too. I mean, yeah, again, not to disagree with everything you say, but I'm in agreement. I think that I actually like new cards. I think they're exciting. Some people feel kind of overwhelmed with them, and they don't like the meta to continually change. But I actually like the frequency of new cards and the balance updates. So I think we're on the same page there. Before we get into the free-to-play decks and stuff like that, tell me right now, as of today in the meta, Woody, what do you think the current Tier 1 decks are? When I say Tier 1 decks, basically I mean decks that could viably finish #1 in the world or top 10 in the world. So what do you think that the strongest decks right now in the meta are?
Great question. I think that the biggest beatdown decks out there are doing very well. I'm talking about Lava Hound and Golem, building up massive pushes behind these two. You can pretty much tear apart any tower once you reach double elixir time. It's the first couple of minutes that can be a little bit threatening if your opponent is running a real chip damage deck that can get a lot of attacks off. But I think that long-term Lava Hound Golem is solid and will continue to be beefed up as things go on.
Yeah, me too. Definitely beatdown is definitely still totally viable right now. Obviously, Lava Hound Golem. Do you think that I just made a little list here, jotted down what I think are the kind of the tier 1 decks right now, and it would be, tell me if you agree or disagree with any of these decks. It would be Bait, obviously, X-Bow, Three Musketeer, Hog, kind of. I think that Hog like NATO deck or a Hog control-y type deck, or even Hog inside a Bait or Three Musketeer deck. Graveyard, I think, is still viable at the top of ladder, and also I think Minor Poison as well. Do you agree with those? Do you disagree with any?
Broadly, I agree. I think maybe X-Bow and Minor Poison, if I were to place any of those into tier 2 or B tier, might get downgraded. But overall, yeah, there's a lot of different Hog Rider decks that exist out there, so I'm not necessarily sure which one you're talking about. There are some like Hog Rider Logbait decks, some Hog Rider Musketeer kind of version 2 of the Trifecta decks that are working well. But yeah, broadly, those are the top decks in the game right now.
Yeah, do you think that a free-to-play deck, kind of transitioning into the free-to-play conversation, do you think that Mortar, you know, your favorite deck, we're going to ask him plenty about Mortar, guys, don't worry. Because I've heard you've got some crazy Mortar decks you've been trying out lately. I'm going to ask you about them. But do you think that free-to-play archetypes like Mortar that rely on a common win condition or even a rare win condition, really, like Three Musketeers as well, do you think they belong at the top of the tier 1 meta? Meaning, do you think it's right to have a deck that relies on a common win condition literally be one of the best decks in the world?
I think it is right, yeah. And whether it's commons or rares, you're going to have more success if you're playing with higher level cards. I'm talking specifically about ladder here. Cards like Three Musketeers, Hog Rider, Musketeer, Goblin Gang, that's the bread and butter of the free-to-play players out there right now who are trying to push ladder. They are reliable win conditions that can be beefed up to play in pretty much any metagame. Three Musketeers works really well in the beatdown setup. Hog Rider works really well when you're playing more casual, small chip-based attacks, you know, against your opponents. I gotta say, Royal Giant, Elite Barbarians, and Mortar have been kind of letting me down recently. The nerfs to these cards have been pretty punishing. They were so strong up at the top because they often got over-leveled. But in tournament rules and on ladder right now, I'm not really feeling them. So I'm leaning more towards rare win conditions now.
Okay. So obviously you do love Mortar, though. Why don't you just list off what you think the most viable free-to-play win conditions are? Of course, you just mentioned it. A lot of people out there relied on, I hate to say it, but Royal Giant, right? And Royal Giant, definitely, that nerf is definitely hitting its usage rates, whether you want to believe it or not. Not you, Woody, but them. Because it feels like anytime you match against a Royal Giant, you're just like, great, another Royal Giant user, you know? But yeah, so tell us, you know, either anecdotally or if you actually have the information about the Royal Giant use rate and more broadly, what free-to-play decks actually work right now.
So Royal Giant has just been nerfed into the ground. We don't see him being used at all at the top of the ladder. Or much at all in tournaments. Same thing goes with Elite Barbarians. I understand the idea here from the developers to make sure that they don't become too overpowered as they get leveled up. You know, we saw level 13 Royal Giants being used by like level 10 players. So there's a little bit of a disparity in the power balancing there. But as far as common win conditions go, I'll say Mortar's my favorite. It's not going to be one of the best decks out there, but if you get really good at any one particular deck, you'll always have something reliable to work with, whatever the metagame may be.
Yeah, so what do you think? Is there anything beyond Mortar right now? Obviously, you know, I guess you can roll. Let's kind of get specific here. Arena's like 4 to 10 zones, so everything besides Legendary Arena. You know, just more broadly, before we get into what type of decks people can use, do you recommend people in that area, you know, whether you're in Arena 5 or Arena 9, do you think that you should be relying on decks, learning decks, and leveling up decks that rely on a legendary win condition, knowing that eventually you're going to be in Legendary Arena with the big boys and have under-leveled cards, even though you've been relying on them so long? Or do you think people should, if you know you're going to be free to play, should you kind of prep yourself for the fact of you're not going to be a big spender, so maybe concentrate on just leveling up your commons and rares? Like, what do you think about that?
It's a great question, and to be honest, I think diversity in gameplay is fine. That's kind of ironic since I always play Mortar, but I think if players experiment around with the high level, epics and legendaries that they managed to get early on, if you get a level 1 legendary, that's the same as a level 9 common in terms of power that card's able to dish out. So give it a try, experiment with it, but probably in the long run, you're going to be finding that you'll get more value out of upgrading the commons and the rares in your decks. Goblin Gang right now is just so strong. It works so
crazy.
Well right when you get it up until the very top of the ladder.
It is. It's hard because, it's kind of boxing out a bunch of other cards too, right? Like poor guards, Guards haven't seen one day of action since Goblin Gang hit the scene, Why would you ever play guards when you could play Goblin Gang?
Right, new gobs on the block.
Exactly. But, a good follow-up question, I think, to that answer that you had is, okay, so you think that it would behoove a player to level up their commons or their rares, probably.
Yes.
Cards like Goblin Gang, very versatile cards if they're free to play. Now, what about gold? I know a lot of my viewers end up saving up their gold to binge on that one legendary that they've been wanting for so long that appears in shop if they're in Legendary Arena. Would you recommend spending your gold or saving at least 40k gold for a legendary card? Or are you of the mind that as a free-to-play player, you should just be using your gold to upgrade cards that fit in a lot of different decks?
My opinion is that you should get every card up to tournament rules. So you should unlock the log, you should unlock the miner, get the Electro Wizard, spend that gold first on getting your cards to tournament standards so that you can play in any challenges or any special events that Supercell is hosting. And then after that, after they're unlocked, focus on the cards you can actually get maxed out first, the commons and the cheaper rare win conditions.
Totally agree with you there. I think it's a great point because I would spend my 40k, even if I've never spent $1 on the game, if I saved up 40k gold, personally, I would spend it on unlocking any legendary card, even Sparky, because in the future, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the line, they could give him a huge buff, and you'd be like, oh, or her, I think it's a her, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
You could give her, they could give her a big buff, and you could be like, oh crap, I've always passed on Sparky.
Oh.
So I would just unlock every card. Would you do the same, or?
I do the same, but Sparky would probably be the last legendary that I'd purchase, maybe even after Inferno Dragon.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I think that the most versatile legendaries that you can grab right now are going to be Electro Wizard, Log. Then the tier right below that, I'd say Princess, Graveyard, and Miner are also really good.
All right, let me throw a little curveball at you then. What about Night Witch? Where, obviously this is just total speculation here.
Right.
But throw her in the mix there. You named like 5 of the strongest legendaries. Do you think she belongs in that conversation, or do you think she's going to be a tier below?
I feel like she's going to be a tier below. She just kind of has a weird setup where she doesn't really particularly do one thing very well. She's kind of like a cross between a knight and like a mini P.E.K.K.A. in terms of the damage output that she has. But then she's relatively fragile, kind of like a wizard, and then spawns these bats. So maybe I just haven't really seen the killer deck that she's been included in yet, but I'm not really sure what her place is in the game. She can do a little bit of anti-air by spawning bats and does good ground damage, but can't soak damage very well. It's just a very strange unit, hard to gauge its power.
I totally agree. My gut, I guess I disagree and I agree. I think it's hard to gauge her power 100%. But my gut is that she'll be pretty good. And the reason for it is that, she won't die to Fireball Zap, which, she'll have like 1 HP left, but still. She has a little bit more health than your average, Electro Wiz or something, lightning targets or Fireball targets. But she's so strong offensively with the unique ability to spawn those bats. I think that people are going to find clever ways to use her in really frustrating ways. I mean, she can solo a tower if you put her in back of your. If she's undefended, she can solo a tower compared to a regular witch who can't even get half HP off a tower. I think that just kind of demonstrates, although it's a bad example, I think it demonstrates how powerful she can be if played correctly. If you can get something placed in front of her, I mean, that's a lot of bats. She spawns like 12 bats before she gets to the tower. It's crazy. And those things are annoying as all heck. And kind of similar to the bowler, if you use her on defense first for whatever reason, and that might be tricky because she's a melee unit, but if you can find a way to use her on defense, she'll spawn like a million bats. You know, like the bowler can kind of stay there forever in the lane.
Yeah.
She kind of has that feel to her as well. But you could be right. I mean, I like that she only costs 4 and not 5 elixir. I think that opens up a lot of doors that otherwise might not be there if she was 5. I think that's a little bit too expensive. So I'm kind of a little bit more bullish on her, but I could be wrong. It's tough to say. I agree. So moving on here. Tell us about the Mortar deck that you're playing right now. I gotta ask, what are you playing? I heard you were messing around with a Mortar Tornado deck.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a lot of fun. I have been playing kind of this similar deck for probably 2 months or so now. I call it Mortar Cycle. I picked it up from someone on ladder. I can't even remember. It's just been modified so many times by this point. But it's got Mortar, Ice Spirit, Skeletons, Knight, Archer, and then the spells are Rocket, Log, and Tornado.
Okay, tell me about the usage of Tornado in that deck.
So Tornado's the newest addition to this deck. I've had Arrows in that spot. I've had Princess in that spot. And I'm not even really fully sold on Tornado being the best one. But it's the one I'm sticking with right now. And the reason is, although Arrows get a lot of value against minions, they're going to be a hard counter, obviously kills them. The Tornado is going to work particularly better against big tanks, like the Lava Hound, Golem, Giant. If they're coming toward your tower, you can set up a mortar on the opposite end and then just tornado that big tank onto your king tower, get it activated, soak all the damage there, and tear down that tank before it can do too much damage. It also works pretty well against a miner. You can sometimes get that onto your king tower, or even a goblin barrel, a hog rider. Anything that's coming straight at you, Tornado can try to keep it away for a little bit of time and buy you the opportunity to cycle back into the counter that you might be looking for. And it helps you out against the biggest counter to this deck. Mortar Cycle hates playing against Lava Loon decks because they just have so many hit points in the air. The Tornado Rocket combination, hard to pull off at 9 elixir, but it does a ton of damage. And at tournament standards, Tournament Rocket and a Tournament Tornado will be able to kill a balloon.
Yeah, that's a good point. That will actually take down the balloon because, the Tornado has so little DPS, so little damage that if it didn't kill the balloon, I think it would be an awful combo for 9 elixir. But because it does, because it's just enough to get that balloon down, I think it's an interesting addition to that deck. Didn't we play each other on ladder recently? I think we tied. I think I
beat you, Ash.
Oh, you probably did. I don't know. I want to say
I remember that because it's the only thing worth remembering. I actually just got back from Helsinki, and I think I played you in the airport.
Oh, nice. Because I remember, I think I could be totally wrong here, but I want to say like our record on ladder meetups is close to 50-50. You might have the edge if you won that one, but I thought we drew recently. Either way, my point is I was playing Three Musketeer, and Tornado against Three Musketeer combined with Mortar is really annoying, because you can just Tornado my Musketeers into the same lane and then put that defensive Mortar down and take them all out, and boy is it irritating, and it's effective.
Oh, absolutely. We have trouble with the big tanks like Golem and Lava Hound. That's why I added Tornado into the deck. But things like Three Musketeers, Log Bait, Hog Rider, this deck does pretty well against them. And I think you've seen firsthand how effective it can be. I think you're wrong, though. I think that you are beating me overall in ladder matchups. I just got a pretty good chance this time around.
Honestly, okay, this is 100% honest. I think we're 1-1 or 1-1 in our actual ladder matches, but I could be wrong. I don't remember too many. I think we actually faced each other in a challenge or something. I don't know, whatever. This is like a year and a half worth of.
You beat me in that challenge at the King's Cup. I remember that one. It was the morning of the King's Cup.
Yes, I remember that one too. And I was like, dude, I beat Woody. I feel pretty good about this. And then Yao Yao handed my what to me. Man. It was awful. I was using the same deck too that I used against him. I'm like, you know what? I think I got a chance against Yao Yao. I got a chance. And then it was just like bloodbath central. But anyway.
Yeah, 0% is a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. This is true. Okay, so free to play. Last question on free to play cards. We've only really talked about Mortar. Is there anything else you can give people out there for arenas 4 to 10? What do you think? Obviously, very early arenas. which decks and stuff like that have a place in the meta. And then as you evolve, more people are carrying, you know, golem decks or lightning decks of any sort, and which kind of drops off. What do you think are the strongest decks? I'm not sure if you have an arena by arena kind of, you know, heat map on what's popular, but like kind of maybe as a broad arena range, like, you know, 4 to 7 and then 7 to 10 and then legendary. Do you think that there's certain decks that work better in those areas than others?
I think that minions and goblins are your friend. If you can get those guys leveled up, especially with the goblins, if you can get those over leveled, in fact, and your opponent's tower has to 3-shot them, they become very effective. And minions as well. The swarm effect that you can get from some of these cards is just absolutely wonderful. Unless your opponent happens to be playing arrows or has an over-leveled zap. If you can get those 2 common cards upgraded and stick them behind anything, like a nice golem or a giant, they can do a ton of damage. And they're available at very early arenas, and they work well consistently against lots of different decks. I advocate for playing log bait, arrow bait, whatever you want to call it, swarm decks very highly.
Okay, good advice there. Do you think that when you're picking up a new deck, whether it be a mortar deck, as you would definitely know about, or really any kind of deck, it might differ, actually. I don't know how you feel based on what archetype you're picking up, but this is a question I get a lot, and I like to ask my guests also, is when you're picking up a brand new deck, what do you think is a safe amount of matches to play before you can consider yourself, you know, not advanced, but, you know, intermediate, I guess, with the deck that you're trying to learn? Do you think it's a matter of getting a couple of grand challenges in, classic challenges, or is this something that you have to spend weeks or months playing to get a basic feel for?
Ooh, you know, it really does vary by deck, so it's hard to give a firm answer on that. You know,
okay,
if you have familiarity with the Siege archetype, for instance, you can kind of switch back and forth between Mortar and Expo. If you know how to play Beatdown, then whether it's a Golem deck or a Giant deck, you're usually going to understand the flow of the game and how it goes. I'll say in general, though, as a general rule, play 3 times against the major archetypes that you expect to go up against before you'll really understand most of the interactions there. And for 3 times against most of the interactions, for like five or so different archetypes that you'll have to go up against, I guess it'd be about 15, 20 games.
Okay, yeah. I'm probably just slow because I feel like I take forever to get a good grasp on a deck. Like maybe, I mean, obviously a lot of it probably has to do with the individual who's trying to learn the deck as well. Some people are just quick learners. But me, if I'm picking up a brand new deck, probably, you know, I don't know the number of matches, but I'd probably like to play it a week at least before I throw it away and say, okay, I just either this deck sucks or I suck.
You are patient, Ash.
Really? You think that's patient? I feel like some people like go months.
I'll go on stream, and if someone recommends a deck for me, I'll play it 5 times. If I don't like it, I'll throw it away.
You're just done.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are like that. Based on YouTube comments who are like, this deck sucks, and it's like the #1 player's deck. I'm just like, well, somebody likes it, man. Someone's good with it. But last question before I leave you today, Woody, is how do you feel about the Crown Championship? Are you excited for it? Do you think there's been a few bumps, I think, early on in the road, I think, with registration issues. But other than that, it seems to be going pretty smoothly. How do you feel about this $1 million eSport championship?
I am thrilled for it. On the conceptual level, it's fantastic that Supercell is promoting Clash Royale as an esport with first-party implementation of this big tournament scene with multiple stages. Everyone's going to get a shot at either open play or, you know, at least a chance to qualify for the brackets. I think we're really going to see some superstars emerge in the round robin play, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who really is the best of the best at Clash Royale.
Me too. I think a lot of people were worried that a lot of the pros wouldn't qualify for whatever reason just because of chance or so many people, but at least what I've seen, it seems like every well-known player has easily moved on so far in open play.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get into a bracket easy. The tough part is taking it from the bracket into the round-robin stage. I really hope that they make it so that you can compete in multiple brackets, because it would just really suck if, like, by poor chance or whatever, all 8 of the top players in the world get into the same bracket.
Yes.
And you wind up having, the #1 player in the world with the number 9 and the number 15 and the number 27 or something. I want the top 8 to be in that round robin.
Yeah, me too. That's a good point. Time will tell. I'm sure they'll learn from this. I think that if all goes well, or at least semi-well, I think they're going to continue this type of thing, indefinitely. So I think, maybe a few bumps in the road, but hopefully they'll change the format if any of those situations kind of arise. But like you, I'm super overall. I mean, you can't not be excited about $1 million tournament.
Right?
It really vaults, you know, Clash Royale right into the esport realm. There's really no doubt about it, I feel. So I'm excited about it. Do you have any final words, any shout outs? I know you always like to give love to the Reddit Alpha family. What else do you have on your plate today, Woody?
Of course, you can stop by and check out our new clan, Alpha Esports, which does not have a trophy requirement. You just got to try out and prove your worth. As you know, Ash, and I'm sure most of your viewers know, I also stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Woody_CR. I hope they can find a link in the description below. I'll also have a Twitter link that I hope that they'll follow. Woody_CR is the same one over there. But thank you so much for having me, Ash. It's always a pleasure to discuss the card popularity snapshot. I've switched to doing it on a monthly basis to match up with the in-game seasons, and I'm really looking forward to seeing which decks are going to emerge as the best from May 2017. I expect we'll see a lot of them in the Crown Championship.
Me too, man. I'm excited for it too. Next time I'll have to get you on within, you know, a day or two before it releases, if I can actually get my schedule right. Last question. If you had to win one match in Clash Royale, who would you have play?
Who would I have play if I had to win one match?
Yeah, if you had to bet your everything you own on one match, but you could pick a representative to play.
Ooh, that's a fantastic question.
Thank you.
You know, I'm gonna have to go with the home field advantage and throw a shout out to my man Turtwig Data. He's been showing me a lot about Siege decks recently. He is so versatile and so highly skilled in a vast array of decks. I'm gonna give it to Turtwig Data.
I love it, man. I need to get him on the channel.
Absolutely. He is the guy to beat for Siege.
Awesome. Well, again, Woody, really appreciate it. Always love having you on the channel, so thank you, man.
My pleasure, Ash. Have a good day.
You too. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Huge shout out to my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. You can find out his information in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.